Hello everyone, and thank you for coming to our event today. My name's Leah Ellis, and as the chair of the Merseytravel Unison Branch Equality and Diversity Working Group, I'd like to welcome you here today. Next, I'd like to hand over to Councillor Anna Rothery, the Lord Mayor for Liverpool, and we can hear a little from her next. Thank you.
Right, okay, so talking about what are we doing in terms of race equality. I mean, we all know about the murder of George Floyd. He's not the first, and it's not just the US, this is going on globally. The difference between Black Lives Matters is that Black Lives Matters has come along at a time when we're all in COVID. And that has basically given us an opportunity to tap into our emotional intelligence. And it's also given us the time to step back somewhat from our day-to-day concerns and look at racism in its entirety and how it impacts on individuals and the negative impact it has on people's mental health, well-being, economic equality, ability to be strong role models, etc. And so in terms of the work that we're doing, this is not a new issue. It always sort of raises its head round about this time of year in terms of Black History Month. The difference between this year and other years that have gone by is that this is not a one-month issue. This is a large movement, international movement around Black Lives Matters, where we are mainstream now, and it's not just in terms of our diverse communities. Our allies from other cultures and faith are there behind us 100% supporting us. And so when we're looking at how we're going to change and transform in terms of how we actually approach the issue, there's a number of things Steve's spoken about, the Liverpool City region. I'd like to just speak about some of the things that we're doing in Liverpool. So, our Mayor Anderson has set up the Race Equality Task Force, as he agreed, and as I firmly believe, very, very late in the day. We haven't done nearly enough in terms of tackling race inequalities in the city. However, we are now on a path to change that. And so the Race Equality Task Force is being led by Tracy Gore. And Tracy Gore is a very experienced chief exec of Steve Biko Housing. She's been an activist within the Liverpool 8 and wider, further afield for many, many years. And so she has got the arduous task of taking evidence and bringing information together in terms of the impact, the disparities, focusing on the professions and the industries that we need to look at, and how do we eliminate things around, as Steve spoke about, supply chains. How do we get around the legislation that doesn't allow us to recruit from particular groups? This has always been a huge barrier in terms of the race equality movement. And so, talking about some of the approaches, I just want to say that, whilst we really do need the political drive from our Metro Mayor and elected Mayor in Liverpool and further afield, we can't achieve this alone. This is not just a political responsibility. We have to work with our businesses, our educators. We have to work in partnership with our unions. Racism transcends all professions. It'd be very naive to think that, because we celebrate Black History Month and we support Black Lives Matters, that everybody's coming from the same position. And this is what's always been the big difficult issue in terms of making any inroads in terms of the disparities that we see across the board. And so I'm working with Hope University. I'm really pleased to say that we've just gone live with 2 new programs, which are based on positive action principle. One is to increase Black social workers and the other one to increase Black teachers. And so the Black social workers and Black teachers programs are a foundation degree, an MA. But the difference on this initiative is that it's an end-to-end model, which is the model that I've utilised and the model that I've been working to. Under the auspice of Lord Mayor, I also have my theme as being equality for all. So this enables me to do work with our partners across the city region and nationally. So we've worked very closely with Bristol City Council, with Marvin Rees and his deputy, Asher Craig. And so we're working very closely together to try and challenge the perceptions within the professional world in terms of recruiting from diverse communities. So going back to the educators and what we can do with educators, we don't utilise our universities enough. And so the programme came about after meeting with the Vice-Chancellor, Gerard Pillay, and having a very, very frank conversation about the role of universities. And looking at statistics, you know, it's very, very easy to be deceived, shall we say, about statistics, because when we look at the diversity of students across all our universities, it looks quite good. But the reality is that many of those students are overseas students. In terms of local access to universities, it's very poor, which is profound considering we have 3 major universities on our doorstep in Liverpool. And so looking at how we challenge that going forward, the Positive Action Programme is one way. The other thing is around, and this is probably pertinent to the, you know, your movement in terms of Unison, is like also looking about education in secondary schools. And so looking at things like safe passage for our children who are travelling across the city from their homes to their schools, and the way that they're being treated on public transport, being subjected to racism and discrimination and bullying, etc. So, you know, that's something else that needs to be looked at, looking at a safe passage. And that's not just for young people, children, that's also for adults who have to go to other parts of the city or other parts of the city region in order to find employment, and the way that they have to, the things that they have to contend with just in order to go to their place of work. Working with John Moores University, they've just agreed to do a piece of research with me over 3 years, looking at the admissions into education at school for Muslim children and children from diverse communities, but also the appeals process. And what we know is that persistently we see applications refused to children from diverse communities for the schools that you know, they would like to be able to send their children to, but unable to do so. And then even more astounding are the figures of the success rates of the appeals when people appeal about the decision. Sometimes they're wrapped up for months, they end up missing places, they're left with no school places for the children, etc. You know, it's an abysmal state of affairs. I took 5 recommendations to the Education Select Committee in Liverpool City Council. One of them was safe passage, the other was about the Archdiocese and the figures that are available for children of non-faith and other faiths, which were based on a completely different demographic, which was about 40 years old. The diversity in the city has increased way beyond since then. And then issues around access to a school board of governors. I don't know how we can have realistic conversations about the impact when our school board of governors don't reflect the diverse communities in the city. And then also making sure that we've got advisory members on our select committee from diverse communities so they can be part of the conversation and part of the decision-making process. And so there are a number of ways that we can tackle the inequalities, but we have to be looking at a solution-based approach, I firmly believe. We're looking at Black History Month, we're looking at enslavement, we've also got the issues around street names and statues, etc., which are all important issues. However, my focus remains on the solutions in terms of economic equality. How do we ensure that we have access to education and employment and sustainable education and employment? I'm not talking about a positive action programme that lasts for 12 months and then that's the end of it. And so that's where I'm going to be concentrating my efforts going forward. We've got some really interesting initiatives that we're partnering up with businesses and both football clubs, etc. And so we're going to be rolling those out in the next couple of months. Obviously, COVID has played its role. The social work and Black Teachers Programme was supposed to be rolled out this year, but will be rolled out next year. And the really interesting thing about that is that we're also able to recruit 12 education practitioners from the Black community to act as mentors for the students on the social work programme, and also the same number for mentors on the Black Teachers Programme. And so that is another crucial part of it. It's not just about getting the qualification, it's about being fully aware of the barriers and the pitfalls in employment, and we need to tackle those issues as well. So I'll leave it there if that's okay.
Thank you so much, Anna. It was fascinating to hear. I think you, in a sad way, I think you've highlighted some of the realities of the city. And it is uncomfortable to hear, but I think we need to feel uncomfortable. I think we need to hear this. I think we need to be aware of where we are behind or where we're not doing well enough. I'm sure, though, with your appointment and all the kind of projects and initiatives you've said that you're championing, hope that, you know, we see a change in things sooner rather than later. I know COVID has been nothing but a challenge in some ways, but like you said, it's given us the time to reflect that perhaps we wouldn't have had. We've stopped slightly, haven't we? We've got that time to read and talk and think. So I feel hopeful as well as uncomfortable about the reality. So thank you so much. It was really interesting to hear your thoughts, and it's really good to hear that, you know, you're working hard on fighting the good fight.
Thank you, Lee.